After many years of thinking about it, we finally committed to visiting Antarctica. This, the Earth's southernmost continent, is the fifth largest and is almost completely covered in ice. It was only discovered in 1820, has no permanent human inhabitants, and is owned by no government. Its remoteness has until very recently ensured that it has been accessible only to heroic explorers such as Scott, Amundsen, and Shackleton, as well as researchers and a handful of extreme adventurers. Now, Antarctica can be experienced by almost anyone who really wants to and has the means to visit this mysterious continent, via so-called expedition cruises, most of which depart from the town of Ushuaia, Argentina, the southernmost town in the world. This is where we landed after a long flight from our home in Calgary, Canada, and boarded our one-ocean, ice-strengthened vessel, the RGS Resolute. After slipping the jetty, we slowly steamed eastward down the Beagle Channel towards the treacherous and wild Drake Passage, infamous for being some of the wildest ocean on the planet, and began a 1,000-kilometer beeline for the Antarctic Peninsula. After a bone-shaking 72-hour crossing, we entered the Antarctic realm almost gently, awakened by the sound of ice chunks bumping under and grinding along the hull. We stopped briefly to pick up whale scientists at the US research base at Palmer Station on Andrews Island. They added to the complement of naturalists, historians, geographers, glaciologists, ornithologists, and photographers on board. This was not a pleasure cruise, but a scientific educational expedition. In the early morning light and through the fog, Antarctica gave us a glimpse of its spectacular scenery and unbelievably huge sculpted icebergs. We were awestruck, as evidenced by the almost complete silence of all on board, as we contemplated the fact that we were really in Antarctica.
Wow, that is crazy.
Our experienced crew skillfully navigated around these impressive ice sentinels as we cruised south for 2 days looking for weather, sea state, and ice conditions which would allow us to get into the zodiacs and go ashore. No luck. In fact, we traveled so far south that we crossed the Antarctic Circle, which we celebrated with the ancient marine ritual of dressing up as sea creatures. It was 7 a.m. and snowing, so the crew served us hot coffee spiced with Baileys, which warmed us and added to the celebratory mood. For a brief period, we were the most southerly vessel in the world, but we couldn't stay down here forever, and so we turned north, hoping that the weather would change for the better. We filled our time on board scouring the horizon for marine life, taking in the informative lectures, and refamiliarizing ourselves with our camera gear. So this is the first time we've had a chance to get off the boat onto a Zodiac. We are on our third or fourth day at sea, and the water's calm and we're getting ready.
We finally are in the water. Yeah.
No, we're not in the water. Yeah, on the water.
Good time, sweetheart?
Oh.
Once the Zodiac takes us a little distance from the ship, you start to feel how immense the Antarctic is, and just how insignificant you are. Antarctica pays no heed to your presence. The sense of space is overwhelming, and the silence is deafening. Time has no meaning. We've all read about the potential consequences of this great mass of ice, which is 4 kilometers thick at the center of the continent, possibly melting due to climate change. It's only when you see it firsthand, with your own eyes, that you get a real sense of how much water will be released into the ocean and what the impact the resulting rising sea level could be on coastal communities around the world. From a distance, the continent seems barren of all life, but as our Zodiacs approach the ice sheet, some of those little black dots we thought were just rocks turn out to be seals taking a well-earned nap. There is life in this remote and hostile place. The lone seal watches as we leave and return to the comfort of our vessel. The inclement weather has frozen us through to our bones, but we feel exhilarated with the knowledge that we have just seen one of nature's great spectacles, the Antarctic ice sheet. Eventually the weather clears up sufficiently so that we can enter Dorian Bay and step onto the Antarctic continent. Ever since first seeing pictures of this continent in National Geographic, when I was a young boy, I have dreamed of this moment. I had to pinch myself to make sure it was really happening.
I didn't know that heaven would be so challenging. Or cold. It's amazing.
The Gentoo penguins seem as excited about our arrival as we are. The Gentoo is easily recognized by the wide white stripe extending like a bonnet across the top of its head and its bright orange-red bill. It becomes clear very quickly that they are not at all concerned about our presence and just go about their business. Evidently, they do not see man as a predator. We thoroughly enjoy watching them cavort around. We have seen them in zoos on many occasions. However, witnessing them in their natural habitat makes it a very different experience. This is why we travel. Skuas are one of their few land predators. They eat their chicks and their eggs. We witnessed many brave penguin parents defending their nests from these large aggressive birds. In the ocean, leopard seals, sea lions and killer whales hunt penguins for food. The De Moy Point hut, built in 1973, is a window into a different era. In this particular case, an historic British research expedition. Our resident historian John fills us in, creating a sense of the isolation and adventure, as well as the contribution to science these expeditions made. They may have experienced isolation in their long stays, however the view from their front door is breathtaking. Here we meet Antarctic fur seals. These perfectly evolved creatures are masters of the marine environment. While they appear to be cute and cuddly, we were warned not to approach them too closely. A number of people have been seriously injured as a result of bites. The Antarctic fur seal was very heavily hunted in the 18th and 19th centuries for its pelt. By the early 20th century, the seal was regarded as commercially extinct and perhaps completely extinct. Ironically, these seal populations are believed to have recovered because the removal of whales by the intensive whaling of the 20th century left a surplus of krill, their main food source. It's best to just let the images speak for themselves. No words would do the experience of being in this place at this time justice anyway.
over, Mallow. Here comes the tail. Yes! They're doing some funny stuff now along the surface. Shooting birds is pick one and follow it. Here we go. Got there too.
We are so mesmerized that time passes without us even realizing it. And before we know it, the sun is slowly setting. This produces the most beautiful alpenglow, which adds a whole new dimension to this incredible Antarctic experience. At Half Moon Bay, we are greeted ashore by chin-strap penguins. Its name derives from the narrow black band under their heads, which make it appear as if they were wearing black helmets, making them easy to identify. On land, they build circular nests from stones and lay 2 eggs, which are incubated by both the male and the female for shifts of around 6 days each. We stroll leisurely around the rocky island, enjoying watching the wildlife interact and play. We particularly enjoy watching young fur seals learn how to defend themselves by wrestling with each other like teenagers do all over the world. This day, Antarctica looks very different to the hostile, cold place that it is usually portrayed as in the media and movies. It is as close to paradise as you can get. We stumble upon a young elephant seal who is sunning itself on the beach. What a treat it is to see so many Antarctic creatures in one place. Finally, and unfortunately, we have to leave. These chin straps want to make sure we know the way back to the beach. On our way north, we visit Deception Island. This still active volcano in the Shetland Islands is a window into man's impact in Antarctica. As our vessel carefully navigates Neptune's bellows, the narrow entrance to the flooded sunken caldera, we take in the bleak, dark volcanic scenery. This location feels different. It has a foreboding mood. We come ashore in a plume of sulphurous vapor, which leaves no doubt that the volcano is still active. The water in this vicinity is almost too hot to touch. All around us are the rusting and rotting remains of what was once an active sealing and whaling station in the early 1800s and 1900s. It was from this location that fur seals and humpback whales were hunted to the point of extinction. It is perhaps ironic that the only thing that stopped the slaughter was the fact that the whalers were so efficient at their job that they drove the price of whale oil so low that this activity became uneconomic. The tourist brochures describe this place as a wonderful place to take photographs, to witness a piece of interesting and adventurous history. Through my lens, it is a sad testament to the fact that human beings, in their pursuit of profit, will destroy and decimate everything in their path if they are left unchecked. Antarctica does need to be protected from us if it is to remain the paradise we have been so fortunate to experience on this trip. Sunrise, March the 19th. We're heading northeast across the Drake Passage after an incredible journey to the bottom of the world. The Drake Passage lived up to its fierce reputation, hammering our vessel with 4 to 7 meter waves on our 2-day sailing back to the tip of southern Argentina. After arriving safely at the town of Ushuaia, we disembarked to commence our long flight back to Calgary, Canada. I feel that going to Antarctica is possibly like going to the moon. You spend more time getting there and coming back than you do when you are there, but it will change your perspective forever.